Microphone. Thank you for joining the Finance Committee. Today is Friday, March 14th. We are going to vote 7 bills, hopefully, and it's our last voting session of the week, anyway. We might be back on Monday. So we are going to start with Senate Bill 376, Senator Kramer, Health Facilities, Delegation of Inspection Authority, Nursing Homes. And it will be Nathan.
Senate Bill 376, as amended and shown in the reprint before you, requires the Secretary of Health, on request of a county, to delegate to the county the authority to conduct site visits and full surveys of nursing homes. So the Department of Health and the county must then equally share in the costs of conducting the site visits and full surveys delegated to the county by the Secretary. So the amendments, if you'll look on page 2 of the reprint in the back, clarifies that the delegation of authority is related to surveys and complaint investigations, and then further requires the Secretary to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the county within 90 days, and then specifies that the MOU must be modeled on a previous memorandum of understanding with Montgomery County that was in effect in 2019. And that's it.
Hello. Move favorable, Madam Chair.
Second.
Senator.
Which county will this have the greatest impact in?
Well, as you know, it's Montgomery County.
Okay.
There have been, we were so far behind, there were like 0 inspections done for 3 years, truly across the state. And since the change in the administration with the new leader in the last year at OHCQ and Dr. Kay, who's the deputy secretary over that, they've done 83 inspections this year, 20 in Montgomery County, which I imagine has the most nursing homes in the state, but they've done 20 there, but 83 across the state. They're almost fully staffed again, and so things are finally moving along. But I can tell you from having family members in nursing homes the last 3 years, it's been very difficult that no surveys were being done.
Yeah, I said that a little tongue in cheek, but I'm concerned. I mean, if my district, if this is not happening, is there a way I can find out the numbers and stuff like
Yes. You can reach Sarah Case Heron. Do you know Sarah? Have you worked with her? I'll give you
Yes,
contact. She'll tell you how many are done.
Okay.
They can give you the entry date and the exit date and how many more there are to do. All that information's available.
that? Yeah, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I made to Senator Ellis's question. Under the bill, if your county wants to do it as well, they certainly can. Any jurisdiction. Montgomery County has actually been asking for it already, but this would afford any jurisdiction that wants to, that has concern about the health and well-being of our most vulnerable in these nursing homes to step in and say, okay, we're going to get it done because the state's been failing.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I definitely will follow up with this, because this would definitely
Thank you, Matt.
helpful.
Madam Manager, let's call the roll. I don't see any other questions.
Can I co-sponsor this bill? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love this bill.
All right. Who wants to be a co-sponsor? Give Nathan a minute.
Looks like everyone. Yeah.
It's unanimous, except Bidle. Okay. I guess we don't need a roll call if we, okay. All right. Senate Bill 376, favorable with amendment, passed unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have Senate Bill 854. Nathan, and the amendments just came in this morning. They've been really busy. I hope you've had time to work on them.
Yes. So Senate Bill 854 deals with licensed direct entry midwives. There's a reprint at your desk that reflects what have been delivered to me as consensus amendments from all the parties involved. And so I'll just go through a summary of the bill and a summary of the amendments. There's a lot to talk about. I'll be as quick as possible. So the bill as amended specifies that generally the practice of direct entry midwifery is independent and does not require oversight by another practitioner. The scope of practice direct entry midwifery and the medical conditions under which a licensed direct entry midwife must consult or transfer the care of a patient are altered. The bill specifies that direct entry midwives are subject to reporting requirements adopted by the board in regulation after specified consultation alters the requirements for specified written plans and procedures for hospital transfers, clarifies the actions of the Board of Nursing, the actions that the Board of Nursing may take if an applicant to practice direct entry midwifery or a licensed direct entry midwife violates a ground for discipline, extends the termination date of the provisions which generally govern direct entry midwives by 5 years to July 2030, and makes additional stylistic and conforming changes. So then to summarize the amendments, which if you page through, they begin on page 6 and go to about page 12. I've annotated them with some commentary. The amendments retain that the practice of direct entry midwifery includes notifying a pediatric healthcare practitioner within 24 hours after delivery, makes additional changes to listed conditions requiring transfer, consult, and immediate emergency transfer, requires a direct entry midwife to accompany a patient to the hospital only if determined to be appropriate by the midwife and the receiving healthcare provider, requires a direct entry midwife to provide records as directed by the board in regulations, establishes that licensed direct entry midwives shall be subject to reporting requirements adopted by the board and regulations in consultation with the advisory committee and specified stakeholders. So that's a pretty high-level summary. If you'd like, I can go page by page, or we can just wait for some questions, or.
Do we have any questions? Do you want any more detail? It's an important bill. A lot of people use midwives, and it was going to expire in '25, so we needed to do something. Senator Lamb? Oh, you made a motion. Who seconded? Okay, so Senator Lamb motioned, Senator Washington seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 854 as amended? Thank you, Nathan. We're getting it out just in time. Thank you.
That's it for me.
Okay. Amber.
Next on your list, Senators, is Senate Bill 894, related to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. This bill, as amended, requires OSC to oversee the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund with the assistance of the comptroller, and for OSC to oversee the appropriation of funds and the training of fund recipients. The bill also repeals several existing reporting requirements for OSC relating to CRRF and shifts those reporting requirements to the counties that receive CRRF funding. Counties must also develop a plan which must be established before beginning to distribute funds. The plan must be developed in consultation with stakeholders and must be the subject of a public hearing before finalizing the plan. Counties must also hold the CRF funds separately from other funds. There are a number of amendments. Some are from the sponsor and some are from MACO. You should have 2 copies of this reprint. I'm going to be going through the one that I just passed out that includes the MACO amendments for discussion, for the committee to be aware of at least what MACO is requesting. So at page 2 of the reprint, this is striking that OSC would have, at line 24, would have administered the CRRF, and rather they're going to oversee the fund. There's a technical amendment at the top of page 3. In lines 14 through 29, that's the repeal of the OSC requirements. Because those brackets are easy to miss, I wanted to point that out to you. At page 4, this is just some general findings of the General Assembly. There's no amendments there. Page 5 is striking language that would have established an advisory board for the fund. That continues all of page 6. Then we get to page 7. There's another sponsor amendment that's conforming, retaining the requirement for the comptroller to administer the fund rather than OSC. At page 8, line 13 contains a clarifying amendment from the sponsor. At line 14, you'll see that there was 5%. That's how the bill was introduced by the sponsor. MACO has requested increasing how much may be used for administration up to 15%. So the committee can discuss how they want to handle that requested amendment from MACO. At the top of page 9, at lines 9 and 10, this is a sponsor amendment that was supported by OSE that would remove a restriction on how the counties can use the funds. There are still restrictions in statute, but this was further restricting it to a list of a number of items that you can see on page 7, starting at line 25. Behavioral health crisis response, education, truancy. It goes down through H. There's a number of items that they would have been restricted to using the fund for, but now those are just examples of the types of things that they can use the fund for, and remain the fund purposes and uses remain the same as under current law otherwise. Generally, that they be used to benefit low-income communities. Back at page 9, at lines 25 through 27, MACO requested that these lines be struck. Right now, a number of counties are working in partnership with local nonprofits in order to administer these funds. This language requiring that the county be solely responsible and not delegate these responsibilities to an outside organization, MACO represents will be very challenging and costly for counties to implement. I would also change the way they've structured their ordinances that have just gotten up and running. And then further at page 28, this is just adding a date requirement for when the OSE must adopt regulations that is offered by the sponsor. And finally, at page 10, there is a sponsor amendment advancing the effective date from October 1st, 2025 to June 1st, 2025.
I don't see that amendment.
It's on page 10, the very back page.
I wonder I don't see it. Senator Ellis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, Emma, could you refresh what the social equity fund is meant for?
So this is the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. It's currently administered by the comptroller with the assistance of OSE, which is the Office of Social Equity that the General Assembly created when the cannabis reform law passed. So it's an independent office that's functioning within the Cannabis Administration, and they're really just charged with promoting and encouraging full participation in the cannabis industry by communities that have been previously disproportionately harmed by the enforcement of the war on drugs.
Okay, thank you. And so this is for individuals who want to open dispensaries or other, or?
So this fund is funded through tax revenues. That gets 35% of the tax revenues from the sales and use tax on cannabis. And then it must be distributed to each county in relation to, yes, the number of cannabis arrests that took place from July 1, 2022 to January 1, 2023. And that number and the percentage that each county gets is in a report that is on the Office of Social Equity's website, and it was as determined by conversations with the Office of Social Equity. The Attorney General was involved in establishing those percentages, so that's how that works.
Thank you for that. Is there any amount that you can put to how much is in that fund now? The period where?
Senator Hershey's going to do some quick back of the envelope map.
That's what I saw in here was 63 million was collected the first year, and you just said 35%.
35% is going into this fund.
Yeah. So I'm concerned, did it actually go in there, or is this, it's actually?
It's about 16 million in fiscal 26 is what's anticipated.
Okay, anticipated. So this is the first year the money will go into the fund?
No, money's been going into the fund each year, and it is distributed quarterly to counties. So money is already being distributed to counties. I believe Baltimore City is the biggest receives the biggest percentage of that, but each county gets some percentage, and they're already being distributed. It's been collected since the adult use sales began.
And do we have a fact sheet on the distribution per counties? And basically who, if it's reaching the actual people that
So
intended for?
a lot of the counties have not actually started expending these funds. Before they were able to expend the funds, they needed to establish a certain ordinance on how the funds were going to be used. Many counties have just been able to get that sort of set in place and up and running, so they've had difficulty in really getting this money expended to date.
So that's not our fault, it's the county's,
I think there's growing
Lag.
pains with OSC being a new agency, as well as the counties administering the funds.
great. Thank you for answering my questions, I appreciate it.
Thank you. I was just reading the uses. It's some really good uses with behavioral health crisis and education and after-school programs and, you know, working with the homeless, job training. I mean, the uses, I really hope the counties and the Baltimore City gets this money into use.
And the only thing I want to add, Senator Ellis, so this was my amendment back in the day, and the reason why we structured it around like the arrests is because the whole idea was to repair those communities that was overly, you know, hit with arrest or whatever. But we didn't feel at that time it made sense for us to be making that decision based off of local communities that, and so we asked that every jurisdiction create ordinances to determine how they was going to use their own money. We shouldn't be doing that at the state level, leave it up to local jurisdictions. So Charles County, I guess it's county council or whatever, would be probably, they would have to make their own ordinance to decide how they wanted to focus the money. Yeah, yes, sir.
I think when session's over, I'd like to find out how the counties are using their money. That's a research project for a rainy day when you have nothing to do. Senator Lamb had his light on first. Senator Lamb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just kind of paging through, because I think we have two reprints here, right? So the
You
main-
have two reprints. The first reprint is just sponsor amendments. I did not get the MACO amendments until
Right.
after staff had already distributed the first reprint. So you
Right.
have some that have both the amendments and one that is just sponsored.
So looking at these two, just kind of paging through these two, the main differences here are the percentage cut that's going to be
Correct.
used for administrative funds. In one version is 5%, in the other version is 15%, right?
Yes. And that's at
then-
page 8 for the rest of the committee. Sorry to cut you off,
Right.
Senator.
No, that's okay. And then the other main difference is on page 9, lines 25 through 27 of the reprint. MACO's asking those lines to be struck, whereas it was in the original bill, right?
Yes, those are the two differences between the versions that you have.
Sorry, I couldn't hear Senator Mann. What were the two?
The
What were the
two,
MACO amendments, I guess?
They're at pages 8 and
yeah,
9.
8 and 9 are the two differences. So in one difference, MACO is, I guess, asking for 15% of the funds to be able to be used towards administrative expenses. The sponsor version has 5%, and then in the other difference between the two versions here is that MACO has asked for lines 25 through 27 on page 9 of the reprint to be struck versus it's obviously in the sponsor's bill originally. I guess with regards to the administrative funds, I'm hesitant to give, to kind of expand the amount that's going to be used for administrative purposes, just because this is money that's actually coming out of what could go to the communities. And, I think that's the main aim and goal of this. So, my preference would be actually to keep it at 5%, to make sure that as much of the money that's being designated to our communities can go that way.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? Before either the bill itself or MACO amendment, there was no cap on how much could be used, right?
That's accurate. Any related administrative expenses with no other restrictions on that.
Right. So to that extent, they could have used as any amount that they wanted to. So it's not necessarily going from 5 to 15%. That was just the sponsor's suggestion. So you know, with respect to that, if Mako's now going to be the one that's more responsible, I mean, not Mako, the counties are more responsible.
Can I add, most counties have an agency that does this. We have Arundel Community Development Services, and they already administer grants and follow up on grants, and they're already staffed. So, you know, I think most counties have an organization like that already.
I don't know.
You should. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt something.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, are you, I interrupted, but you, okay. I mean, just in this whole thing, that there is a major shift of who's now responsible for the fund, right? And it was this Office of Social Equity originally was doing it, and then they're putting it back to the comptroller. Now they're just going to provide some type of oversight, which is a very hard word to define, as we're finding out with some other agencies as well.
So the comptroller has always has administered this fund. The bill came in switching administration to OSE, but that has been taken out by amendment. So that part with the comptroller is retaining current law. What is shifting under the bill are significant reporting requirements. OSE previously was responsible for a number of reporting requirements, and they're at those brackets I pointed out on page 3.
Right.
Those are being struck, and those reporting requirements are shifting to the county. And there is also the new county requirement to develop a plan, which is they have to establish the plan before they can distribute funds, so it may delay those funds because they have to develop a plan, consult with stakeholders, and hold a public hearing on it before the plan is finalized. So that's a change at page 9.
So we're asking the counties to do a lot more than they are doing under current law.
I would say yes, under the bill as drafted.
Well, part of it, and every county may not have like personnel to do it, but every county do have a local management board that is structured to receive state funding for distribution.
I
To
understand.
the chair's point.
Right, but I'm also just saying, every bill that we have come in here that asks a state agency to do something has some kind of a fiscal note that says, I need 1.0 or 2.0 or some amount of people to do this. So I think if Mako came in and said, you know, we'd like to be able to, again, they don't have to use it all, but it just gives them the ability, if you're going to put more pressure on the county to do this. I would just want to think we should accept that 15%.
As to what Mako had to say, the legislation that has been drafted has fiscal implications for counties and could preempt the current commissions due to these new plan requirements, but that is their take on the legislation.
And also to both of you all's point, it says not exceeding this amount. So it's not mandating that 5%, it's not mandating that 15%, it's just saying that they can't go beyond that.
Right. And since the chair says we're going to get a report on what they're spending it on.
Right.
If we see that they're spending too much on administrative expenses, we
We can
can
make adjustments.
make adjustments.
Wait a minute, Senator.
Sorry, no, sorry. So the other thing is 15%, if you're a county that's getting $150,000 or $200,000, you get to 15% a lot quicker than if you're getting, you know, Baltimore City's probably getting, I mean, I don't know how many millions, but a lot more. And that was by design because of the program. So, I mean, in fairness, I think a little wiggle room on the administrative is good because you might, you know, be designated, if your county gets $250,000, you might be designating $25,000 or $28,000 of half of somebody's pay towards monitoring. So that's just my 2 cents.
And then the other amendment I found interesting, Mako requested that, what's amendment that will allow
sorry.
counties to continue to work in partnership with local nonprofits, but that's what we're doing when we distribute the funds to local nonprofits, so I don't quite understand.
So, can I?
Yes, sir.
So Baltimore City and 2 other all 24 counties have a local management board. In Baltimore City, to get money to nonprofits and other community partners a lot quicker, our local management board is designated as a local nonprofit, and that way they're not restrained by the procurement laws.
Right.
And so they could get money from the state and federal governments a lot quicker to the nonprofits as opposed to the 18 months that it take to get through a procurement process.
So you support this amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so. Any other comments on these, on the original amendments and then the two Mako amendments? Yes, sir.
Clarification. So under the final recommended amendments, will the nonprofits be involved with actually administering or just receiving the funds?
Under the Mako amendment, nonprofits could be involved in administering the funds. Without the Mako amendment, they would be excluded.
Okay. I'm not sure which one we will be voting on. Is there a recommended one or?
I think we just discussed supporting the Mako amendment.
I think there, as Senator Hayes said, there are a number of counties that do the nonprofits.
Sure. It's 3 counties. I forget what 3 counties are.
So their actual board that decides how funds are used are already a nonprofit outside of county government. This would exclude those boards from being able to manage the money unless we take the Mako amendment, which is what Senator Hayes is suggesting we do.
So thank you. So trying to understand what Senator Hayes mentioned with the local management boards in every county, is that the nonprofit that would administer these funds? And so that'll be clear, we'll go to the local management boards.
Yeah.
Under-
The majority of counties have someone in like the mayor's office or the county, they have employees of the government that handle their local management board stuff. But I know Baltimore City, we designated to a nonprofit, and there's 2 other counties that do the same thing.
Yeah, Charles County does that also.
Okay,
Vice
so
Chair, yeah.
Charles County may be one of them as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Anne Arundel has a local management board too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Senator Mounts, I'm watching the time here, guys. It's
I'll be very quick. I know Talbot does not have an LMB. They've got the Talbot Family Network. Caroline, Dorchester, and Wacomico have an LMB. But the way this is drafted, and so I just want to try to summarize, is it would change the process by which this money is distributed and require the counties, it requires the counties to issue grants. Is that correct?
If, without the Mako amendment, yes, the bill would.
And in any way, does it limit what the money can be used for?
Under current law, the fund is limited for what it can be used for, and it must be used to invest in those communities that were the low-income
Disadvantaged
communities and
by-
communities that were disadvantaged by the war on
Right,
drugs.
because I think a term used earlier was described as low-income communities, but that's not.
It's also for, so there are two, one is the low-income community programs, and the other is community-based initiatives that serve disproportionately impacted areas that were, that are determined.
Yeah, and I think some comments were made. I know some of my counties have done grants, but that was following COVID. They did not do grants before, and they stood up organizations through their economic development offices to do grants. But I think the best way to describe that was a little loose as far as that process. So they're not as proficient, I think, as some others. They could technically say, yes, you've done grants before, but I don't think they would hold themselves out as having a lot of experience in that regard. But would the amendments as they're proposed through Mako allow for a third party to do the grants?
Yes.
Okay. And then the percentage amount that they could keep, is that, we're saying it's at 5%, or are we still debating on?
The bill came in at 5%. I think the committee has not made a determination on about where that percentage should be yet.
Yeah,
If we pass the Mako amendments, it's up
It would
to 15%.
yeah, yeah.
But the committee
So,
could choose whatever
Can I,
number.
can I have a motion to,
Bill with the Mako amendments.
and the other amendments, the sponsor amendments and the Mako amendments. So Senator Hershey moved, Senator Lamb seconded. All in favor of the amendments on Senate Bill 894? Okay, unanimous vote. Thank you. That was the amended bill. I said the bill as amended. Is that okay? I think that's what I said. Okay. So you want to revote it? Okay. That was Senate Bill 894. We're halfway done.
Senate Bill 928 is the Veterans Benefits Matters, Claim Services Prohibitions. Prohibits, except as authorized under federal law, a person that is not accredited by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs from receiving compensation for either preparing, presenting, or prosecuting a veterans benefits matter, or advising, consulting, or assisting an individual with regard to a veterans benefits matter. Likewise, the bill prohibits a person that is not VA accredited from receiving compensation for referring an individual to another person to perform those services, or guaranteeing either directly or by implication that an individual will receive a certain amount of benefits or specific level, percentage, or of benefits. They can't make that promise. The bill also repeals certain advertising and disclosure requirements related to veterans benefit services. A violation of the bill is an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice under the Maryland Consumer Protection Act and subject to its civil and criminal penalty provisions. The civil or administrative penalties collected by the Office of the Attorney General and an action under the bill must be deposited in the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund. There are no amendments and no fiscal impact.
Any discussion? Any questions? Senator Hershey.
I'm just remembering this bill hearing. There just seemed to be a lot of controversy over what was allowed and what wasn't allowed in doing this. And I think we want to make sure that our veterans can get as much assistance and help as possible. And to see that some groups are currently providing that, but yet may not have a certain certification that may or may not be needed. I just don't think that we necessarily should pass something that would prohibit that from happening without knowing that that's really where the federal government is on some of their certifications. And in doing that, is there, I don't know if there's a motion to just say, can we maybe get more information on this or do some type of a study over the summer to see if we can gather more appropriate information and maybe make a decision next year on this?
I just want to say that the secretary came to visit me, and this is his #1 priority, Secretary Woods. And they're doing a great job with our veterans locally. Plus, what's being done is against federal law, so.
But the group that was in here made it sound very much like it was not against federal law, that they were providing a level of assistance that our veterans need, and that they were not taking them on as clients, but just essentially pushing them into the right direction as far as.
But they were charging, and that's what, charging for the application process is what is illegal. And they said, oh, but we were charging as consultants. Let me ask Senator Gall, who has a little more military background.
Well, I appreciate this discussion because I've been putting a lot of thought to it too, because I wrestle with the idea of taking away options from veterans, because I know this process is really difficult to manage, having gone through my husband has a disability rating, and I know this process is really difficult to navigate. That said, I did review the cease and desist letter that was provided by one of these companies. I do think the VA sets forth the reasons why in that cease and desist letter, why it's not compliant with federal law. I know that these companies are still nonetheless making it an argument, and there's ongoing litigation to that effect, saying that they, I don't remember all the entire nature of the argument, that either, but be it as it may, there is an accreditation process that they're not complying with. I appreciate everything that Secretary Woods and his department has done. I know that there has been a backlog in the past of trying to help veterans. I mean, I've put some thought to it and thought about, well, can we just set up a system here, you know, of having them register with DVMF? But I'm like, that's what the whole process of accreditation is already set up with the
That's
federal
what the
government.
House tried, and it was unconstitutional.
Yeah, and even if putting aside the constitutionality issue, there's already a process in the federal government. So, I mean, I think if these companies want to be able to continue doing what they're doing, then I think they need to seek a change in the federal law. But yeah.
Yeah, I was going to follow up just to say, I mean, it is in federal litigation, and we generally try to stay away from that. But I guess the answer to that is, well, I mean, I understand the answer to that's going to be, well, it's against federal law, and they're suing to say it's not. But I mean, I know the House held it, I think, and there's a lot of questions. Look, I think the Secretary's doing a great job. I really, you know, I really do. And I don't have a desire to. It's difficult, obviously, sitting here. I'm not a veteran myself. I do have family that were, and I don't want anybody to be preyed on, but I think these guys do provide a service. It's easy for us that understand how government works to sit here and say, well, they shouldn't be able to do this. But I don't know. I was wondering if there's a way to, like, study this. Like, can we do some kind of study or something on this? That would be, I wish there was a way to, I'd like there to be a way to compromise and say, can we not shut this down right this minute, but study it for a year and for the summer, which I know means I would have to volunteer to study it.
Senator, the problem is we can't make any changes because it is federal law. So this is what the House was trying to do. They were trying to do some changes to what the intake process would be, how the charges that would be made on, and it was unconstitutional. We either allow it to continue or we don't allow it to continue. So
Well, I guess I'm
understand.
saying maybe allow it to continue for a little while longer while we figure out.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Senator Hayes?
No, Senator Reedy was alluding to the House did something, so it sounded like, based off of your comments, Madam Chair, that the House had attempted to make some changes and were unsuccessful. And therefore, what did they do with that bill? Is there a bill coming over to us or what?
It is my understanding they were going to vote the bill without any amendments. I do not know what happened in the House. It was on the voting list for this morning. Staff is not, council over there has not followed up on it. I think someone indicated it was held at voting, so that they may have more up-to-date information than I do. What the House had tried to do and asked for an OAG opinion on it was to actually recognize, establish a fee, written agreement, disclosures for these other businesses that are operating under afoul of federal law, and that is preempted by the federal law, which requires those individuals to be accredited to offer those services.
But Amber, we are expecting, the expectation is that a House bill will come over.
That was my expectation this morning. They were going to pass the bill unamended.
Right, because Madam Chair, there was some, concerns brought to my attention. I usually look to Senator Gao on veterans bills, and it sounds like she's saying let's go. But if we're gonna have a House bill over there at some point, it does give us a little bit more time. So when that bill come over, I would just ask if the committee could flag to us that this is the bill that has some discussion when the House bill come over. So maybe we might be able to revisit the
So you're
conversation.
asking to hold this for the House?
Senator
not-
Senator Guile has also just indicated the House bill was held at the voting session today, so I do not know if they will get to it before crossover.
Well, it doesn't have to be before
But-
crossover.
There's
It
life
is
after
what it is.
crossover.
Okay.
Senator Ellis?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And usually, as a veteran and disabled veteran, I'm usually clear on these issues, but I'm not clear on this one at all. And like Senator Gile mentioned, it's really difficult to take away something that might help a veteran. And because sometimes the government is awfully slow in helping our veterans. And some veterans might be forced to go to these companies to get help. And during the hearing, I remember, asking, why would veterans go and pay all this money when all these services are available? And I think the conclusion was, we as a government is not doing a good enough job to let veterans know about the services available for free. And you have a lot of veterans out there who need these services, but they're not being told by the military on discharge about availability of these benefits. I know at the beginning of the Persian Gulf War, the administration made it illegal for veterans group to go into military and veterans hospitals where injured service members were being treated, prohibited them from going in to tell them about their benefits and how to get their benefits. And so this is a very troubling area, knowing that veterans are being overcharged. But even more troubling to me is the fact that sometimes our government is not doing enough job reaching out to veterans who need the service. And I'm not sure, how to slice this.
I believe there's going to be a motion to hold and wait for the House bill, which gives us a little more
Time
time.
to think about it.
Senator Gall, do you want to close out here?
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll move to hold the bill. If I could, I agree everything with what Senator Ellis said, that I think that this is a difficult, it's difficult to navigate for veterans. But I would say, though, that these are for-profit companies that are able to buy a lot of marketing. They're able to buy really high up on search engine lists versus we're talking VSOs, that are doing this for free. It's a lot different on the capability of being able to reach people by marketing when you're making a lot of money doing this and charging a lot doing this than versus nonprofit VSOs. With that being said, move to hold the bill, Madam Chair.
We don't need a second to hold a bill.
He's just enthusiastic about holding it.
What is it? It's not debatable.
Not debatable.
Okay,
Senate
so
Bill.
Senate Bill 1021 is Senator Jackson and Senator Muse, and Amber's going to go over the amendments on that with us.
Okay, so just to refresh your memory, Senate Bill 1021 prohibits a registered cemeterian, permit holder, or the owner of a cemetery that is exempt from registration and permitting requirements from selling or transferring a cemetery in whole or in part to another person without first obtaining the approval of the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight. The bill also establishes requirements that must be met before the Director of Cemetery Oversight approves the sale or transfer of a cemetery and authorizes the state, a county, or municipality to acquire an abandoned cemetery for specified purposes. You do have a new reprint that contains some amendments as negotiated between Senator Jackson with Senator Reedy. And what you will see is that the bill now exempts certain religious organizations from specific provisions in the bill pertaining to the obtaining approval from the Office of Cemetery Oversight. There are still provisions in the bill that religious organizations must comply with, but we'll go through on page 2. They would be exempt from Part B, which is basically the part where it's saying they must receive the approval of the director. At page 3, they are exempt from Part C. This is also about obtaining approval. D is about obtaining approval, so religious organizations would be exempt. And E is about consulting with the director to develop a presentation plan. Religious organizations are exempt from that. When we get down to Part F, religious organizations are not exempt from first identifying the family members of a person whose remains are affected, and as well as any person that has worked to maintain the cemetery, family who has purchased an unused plot, and descendants and community organizations. And then Part G, which religious organizations would also be subject to, prohibits that they sell or transfer the cemetery unless they've first provided public notice of their intent to sell. And there are 4 ways that they must do that: by publishing notice, placing written notice in a conspicuous location for at least 60 days, providing notice to the local genealogical and historical societies, and holding a public meeting with public testimony. At page 5, Part H, This also is an exemption for the religious organizations, and it goes back to how the director will approve these sales. And Part I, which a religious organization would be exempt from under the amendment, just states how and when the director should approve it. On page 6, there is still the sponsors amendment that we discussed yesterday when the bill was held, and this authorizes a party who disputes the director's decision to bring an action under the Maryland rules to contest it.
Have any questions for Amber? Do I have a motion for the amended bill? Senator Ellis? A second for the amended bill? Senator Reedy? And all in favor of Senate Bill 1021 as amended? Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, last bill of the day, complicated bill, Senator Washington, Senate Bill 984, and David has worked on this bill all day, so
All
David.
day. I'm learning lots about property and casualty and auto insurance, more than just having to buy policies. Senate Bill 984 has two parts regarding the use of telematics in auto insurance. As introduced, the first part is insurers must disclose to policyholders the use of telematics to obtain data on driving habits of the insured. The second part of the bill prohibits the use of telematics when establishing an auto insurance policy or to cancel a policy. You have a reprint in front of you that changes the bill a lot. The sponsor worked with the Maryland Insurance Administration, and a lot of these changes are at the suggestion of the Insurance Administration to put some of the provisions in the bill in the proper place in the code, instead of just having new language in two parts of the code. And the reprint is structured in front of you. You'll see that there's some of the amendments that have sponsor next to them, and some of the amendments have MIA. The MIA, where the MIA appears, those are the ones that the sponsor worked on with the Insurance Administration and the Insurance Administration supports. Where you see just sponsor, the Insurance Administration helped the sponsor with the language, but takes no position on those particular amendments. So if we start, we go to the second unnumbered page of the reprint, and this is new language brought in, and you'll see here that there's this is holdover. This is what was in the original bill, but it's placed in another part of the code, and this says that an insurer may not consider data collected through a program that measures the operation of the vehicle for the purposes of reclassifying an insured into a classification that requires a higher premium. This is similar language into the bills introduced, but it's put in another part of the code where the administration believes, the Insurance Administration believes it belongs. On the bottom of that unnumbered page, and then on page 2 of the reprint, the definition of telematics is struck because the MIA believes that it's not necessary because all language in the code dealing with this type of activity is already addressed. In the middle, there's changes made to the disclosure part of the bill is introduced, and you'll see there's a series of MIAs here. These are mostly clarifying changes to put the bill is introduced into terms that apply to the insurance code, so it reads similar to what else is in the insurance code. There's some new language after line 12. This concerns disclosure language, which again is in the bill is introduced. And then there's an appeals process, which is stated differently than what was in the bill as introduced. And it says that the insurer that implements the use of a program that measures operation, we'll say telematics, an insured vehicle shall establish a process by which the policyholder may correct or appeal data collected through the program that the policyholder believes is erroneous. So this is an appeals process if the insured feels that the data collected by the insurer is incorrect. 13 to 16, these are changes again that the MIA believes puts the language in that's more in line with the code as it already exists. And there's new language from 17 to 21. These are the duties of the MIA regarding telematics. And a lot of this was in the bill as introduced, but it was expanded on by the MIA because they believe that there is a role for them to play regarding telematics. And you can see what they're going to be monitoring the program to ensure that it does not collect or process data in a manner that is unfairly discriminatory, impacts premium rates in a manner that lacks actuarial justification or otherwise violates its title, and correcting or mitigating a finding that the program collects a process data in a manner that is unfairly discriminatory, impacts premium rates. It restates what you just heard. And these are all MIA amendments that they support and that they worked on with the sponsor that changes the disclosure part of the bill. If you go to the next unnumbered page, there's new language brought in here, and there's 2 brackets in this new language. And it strikes, generally, as most of you already know, you have the option as a policyholder to, engage with telematics so the insurer can monitor your behavior. It's an option. It's not required. But there is language in the law that says it's an option unless, and I'll read it here, the insurer only offers private passenger motor vehicle insurance products that require insurers to participate in the program that measures the operation of the vehicle. This, folks call this the Tesla amendment, for lack of a better word. So the amendment offered by the sponsor to this strikes that requirement. So there's only really 2 things in the code regarding telematics. There's an insurer may not require an applicant to participate in telematics, or you'll see at the bottom new language, use data collected through a program that measures the operation of the vehicle to cancel, refuse, or renew, or refuse to renew, or refuse to underwrite a private passenger insurance policy risk. So this was in the bills introduced, but it's now put into this part of the code that deals with telematics specifically. And at the bottom, there's additional language that brings in other parts of the code. And again, this removal of a discount was in the bills introduced, but it's been moved to this part of the code in relation because it's more appropriate there. And this concerns cancellations and renewals for premium increases. And it says that a notice must state in clear, specific terms the basis for the action at minimum, and if the premium increase is due to the removal of a discount based on the insurer's participation in telematics program. The rest of the bill strikes the language in the bill, the rest of the amendment strikes the language in the bills introduced regarding telematics in lieu of these 3 parts of the code brought in at the suggestion of the Insurance Administration, but they have taken no position on. So those would be all sponsor amendments.
So, Senator, we're going to try to get your bill passed. It's a lot this late, and if you don't mind, I see the insurance commissioner here, and if I could bring her up to the table for some questions. We have not passed other bills this year that tell insurance companies how to rate. And I don't know anything about Tesla. Are you required, Senator, to buy Tesla insurance because you have a Tesla vehicle?
No, I don't think you're required to buy.
So you could go anywhere and buy insurance?
Correct.
You could go somewhere that doesn't use telematics?
That doesn't require it. Yes, you can go anywhere.
You could go to a company that only uses telematics to give you discounts, which my company does.
Correct.
So you're personally not necessarily stuck with this process. Now, I was told you're getting rate increases like every month. They change your rate monthly.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I think you're making this personal, and this isn't personal to me.
Well, it's personal because you know about Tesla. No.
Well, I know about a lot of cars. So, and this bill was introduced because I've heard from many of my constituents who are using this, and when they use it, their rate does increase over time. And
does it increase?
It doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or any other vehicle.
Okay. Well, we did pass a bill. This body passed a bill 3 or 4 years ago that said you can use telematics to increase rates. So that is in our books. Company can use telematics to, any company. Correct. And some do and some don't. And some don't use telematics at all, and some only use telematics. So it's really interesting. But I was told Tesla can change the rate month by month. Do you know if that's true?
I believe that's true.
And so it might be at least
I believe any other company can change it month by month too if they wanted to.
Well, maybe that's an amendment that I don't see in the bill, that you can only change it at the renewal with 30 days notice. Just an idea.
Yeah, I think that's an idea, but I think that anyone that drives any car that has telematics in their car, their rate can change at any time based on the agreement between the insurer and the insured.
Okay, I'm going to ask the insurance commissioner to answer that, because that's not been my experience. Typically, you get a renewal in the mail in advance, and you have an opportunity to,
And also, if you don't participate in the program, Madam Chair, and they tell you ahead of time that if you get 15 days to participate in this program,
from when you buy the car?
for when you
Okay.
purchase the insurance. If you do not purchase if you do not agree to participate in the telematics program, they then increase your rate because you did not agree to participate in it. So it does increase it based on the discount
minute,
that they would have given you.
I missed something. If you decide not to participate, they increase your rate,
Correct.
but you didn't participate. How can they increase the rate?
Because they try to lure you in order to use the telematics so they can determine how you're using your car.
Okay.
And so
wait a minute,
initially
wait a
when
minute. I'm just trying to understand. So if you get the insurance and you don't participate in the telematics, is that what you're saying? Okay,
So let me start over for you.
okay.
Okay.
I'm a
So-
little slow on insurance.
So I'm sure you aren't. So when you have your car and you go to State Farm, for instance, and they say to you, well, hey, we're going to offer you all these discounts and here's your rate. But if you do not participate for this telematics program and you go a month without it, then we're going to increase your rate because we're going to take that discount from you.
Right.
And so they give you the initial discount, but then tell you they're going to take it away because you decided not to participate.
That's true.
Does that now make sense?
I just thought you were saying if you didn't participate in the insurance at all. I couldn't figure that out.
No.
So, will you first tell us, please, Madam Commissioner, are you doing a study now on telematics? at the
We are.
insurance-
So we have, actually, we have a market conduct survey out. We sent companies a pretty comprehensive list of questions I'm happy to share with the committee if you'd like. We actually went back and did a clarifying round to make sure we understood some of the responses, and that's due back to us next week, March 19th. So we anticipate publishing a report as soon as we can synthesize all that as humanly possible. I can't say it'll be March 20th. It might be the following week, but we are planning to publish a overall report.
I had some time this morning to look at the MIA amendments before, and one of the things that you and I talked about was you couldn't refuse a company, you can't tell a company they can't increase or decrease their rates based on telematics. Did I understand that correctly? I mean, why are we collecting the data if we can't use it in rating and underwriting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. So I think, and again, to separate it out, and I think the reason, I'm guessing, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but, this body did take action to allow for usage-based insurance, and that's why, as Mr. Smolsky went through, there's a few places where to address rating, you have to bring in different areas of the code, because that's how it was done previously. But right now, these products on the market do look at a host of different factors and then rate up or down or hold steady, right? There's a few different options. I think they probably, depending on the program, have different terms at which they move rates up or down. I think some like Tesla or monthly, some may have different periods. I will say that it is the position of the MIA, and this is current law today, that those increases are subject to notice of premium increase rules. And so it's not always like an immediate up or down. They have to follow those timelines in notice and law if they are going to increase.
So do we allow this to be every month? I mean, shouldn't there be a notice about a rate increase?
There's a notice about a rate increase, but it can happen on a monthly basis within current law if it follows that notice of premium increase. So for example, if there's a telematics reading, and this is current law, and NOPE is sent, and all the rules, NOPE is Notice of Premium Increase, sorry, insurance acronym. Then once that process is followed, then it can be increased on a monthly rate.
I'm sorry, I'm texting the president about how much time we need. Okay.
So can you just repeat that for everybody, what you just said?
Yeah. So there is, right now, under current law, monthly increases possible. It wouldn't happen, though, like, they can make the change and immediately the next month it happens. It's our position you have to follow the NOPE process. So you can make these monthly changes, but there's probably going to be a delay based on whether that NOPE process is followed.
And what's that process?
I'll get you but essentially, if there's a premium increase due to behavior of the driver, then you have to send a letter about the premium increase. Yeah. It gives information about how to file a complaint with the Maryland Insurance
Okay.
Administration, and we do get complaints, and we do get them related to telematics as a result of that process.
Is that in this bill now with the amendments you offered?
That is current law, and it would state nothing in here, I think, changes that process.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
In the bill, Madam Chair, it does say an appeal process for the insured. If they
Right.
believe what the telematics is saying is wrong, they can appeal it.
Yeah.
It
Well,
does say
that's
that.
what
It does say, it says it in the bill, too.
And
But
it's
it's in
in
current law.
addition,
It's in addition to,
yeah,
it's in addition to current law.
Okay. Senator Hershey?
Madam Chair, Marie, I want to make sure I understand this
Yeah.
first. Nobody is required to have a policy that has telematics, right?
no.
Right? So you don't have to have this to begin with. No one has to get into a policy that has telematics, right?
That's correct.
So the people that do select a policy with telematics are doing so because I think what the chair mentioned earlier, there's a possibility based on your driving habits that the rate could go down.
I think that's what folks believe. And go ahead, sorry.
Well, the answer is, to your question is yes. Part of the bill on the blank page, 27501, if you look at section 1, part of it is taking out where it says, unless the insurer only offers private insurance, motor vehicle insurance products that require the insureds to participate in the program that measures these things. So if there are insurance companies that are out there that say, in order to have our insurance, you have to participate in telematics. So
Correct, but one doesn't have to stick with that insurance
no, you
provider,
don't. No,
right?
that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm still getting to the point, still trying to figure out if insurance carriers are offering telematics, there must be some benefit to the premium holders, right? For them to want to get involved in this. If it was all downside, if it was all that, hey, if you come in and get a policy that has telematics, and every time that we think that you're going over the speed limit or you make, right turns on red without slowing down, and we catch that, we're going to increase your premium. Why would anybody get into these types of policies?
Yeah, so I agree, it is a consumer choice, and that's current law, that's the law of the land. I think there are things in this bill, and again, our amendments, I think, take those same that we've offered, take those same concepts, but they add some consumer protections about disclosure, about governance plans, and about establishing an internal appeals process that we think are important consumer awareness and protections.
But we already, as you said before, telematics is already in current law.
It's in current law. There's some important additional consumer protections in this bill, we think.
Okay, and just again, going over those consumer protections again, that, if, no offense to my colleague, but if this bill didn't exist, would you be coming in here with 3 or 4 changes to the existing to the existing bill that references telematics?
So I think the short answer is yes. I think we're supportive of that. Again, the disclosures, the required appeals, and the provisions about governance plan and periodic reporting to us. I think we think those are all really common sense, and those are all provisions of law that we'd be interested in moving forward. It would help us do our work in serving the consumers that we serve.
I really hate to cut this short, but we have an issue on the floor we have to get back.
okay.
We've got to vote for third readers by 6. We're going to meet again Monday morning before, whatever time we're going to start on the floor Monday, we'll be here an hour before. I'll announce it.
Is it possible, just, Marie, to just see something if you had your own bill that you wanted to address these questions, what it would look like? Because it's, at some point in time, this has gotten to be really confusing to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 amendments on this bill. Is there something that would just look a lot cleaner that we would be able to maybe debate a little bit more or understand a little bit better? I don't know if that's worth asking for, Madam Chair.
I was going to ask the commissioner to review
however she
this
wants.
weekend and get back to us.
With all due respect,
Yeah.
we see a lot of complicated bills in here with a lot of amendments on
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
And we
no.
take them up and we take our time to go through them.
And
So
Senator,
I'm trying
we
to
will.
help a little bit with you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The president has asked us to come over.
Okay.
We've got someone that has to leave at 6 for religious reasons, and we have to vote third readers. We will do this Monday morning. We will take our time. We will go through the amendments. And if you and I can talk Monday morning, when you've had a time to, David, can you make sure that the commissioner gets a copy of the amended bill? She has the amended bill? Okay, we will do it Monday morning.